Hey, welcome to Chex Quest, but not as you may remember it. This is Chex Quest on the Game Boy Advance, running on real hardware. Recently I covered the fan port of GBADoom and I had a really great time with it. In the comments there were a few people asking would Chex Quest run, and in the research that I did after that video I actually found this. Yes, this is a fork of GBADoom and it's running Chex Quest. I thought it was quite a novel thing to see, so I figured I'd make a follow-up video to that just to sort of show that yes, you can indeed play Chex Quest on your Game Boy Advance. Would you want to? Well, let's play a bit of it and see what we can find here. First impressions are pretty great here. The correct music is present and the enemies are making the right noises when we shoot them with our little zapper here. It is pretty cool because if you remember in the GBADoom variant we saw that the music wasn't loaded into some of the WAD files, so it's quite nice that we're not hearing Doom music here but actually hearing the Chex Quest soundtrack. For the uninitiated, Chex Quest is a first-person shooter that actually runs on the original Doom engine. It was released in 1996 with boxes of cereal as promotion for that cereal. It is definitely not as violent as Doom. There's no blood here and there's no, scariness going on. I mean, these green blobs here are definitely scary, but not in the same way as Doom enemies. And honestly, it's a pretty good time. This game got a sequel, and then it got a third game, and it's even got a HD re-release that you can play on Steam these days if you really want to. It's honestly very fascinating, and it's definitely a fun time if you love your Doom like I do. I wouldn't say it's amazing, but playing it on Game Boy Advance here, you can definitely see the Doom DNA is shining right through. If you've never played this, I would definitely recommend playing it on PC. Definitely wouldn't recommend playing it on Game Boy Advance though. As novel as this is, you'll find out in a bit that this is not the perfect conversion that it kind of looks like. But it's the same as Doom Chex Quest. You basically have to collect keys, wander around, open doors, find your way to the end of a level, and kill enemies. Well, we're not really killing them, we're actually zapping them away. This game is very non-violent and it is very explicitly so because obviously for promotional material. This was intended for kids after all. There's a lot of wide open spaces here as well. You can see those flags kind of phased into existence as we got close to them, and that's one thing that you kind of have to get used to when playing through this. A lot of distant objects kind of become very blurry and very fuzzy. For reference, I am playing this on real Game Boy hardware. I'm actually playing this on the GameCube through my Game Boy Advance player using Swiss, and I'm using the Game Boy interface. The issue with the official GameCube disc that comes with the Game Boy player is that it kind of smudges the image quality, so it looks a bit rougher than it ends up needing to. That's one of the reasons why I'm choosing to use this, if people are curious. I always get lost in Chex Quest. I'm not used to these levels, and the thing with these levels is that they can be quite big. They are fairly ambitious. They really went above and beyond making these... Oh, hello you. You can see that we aren't actually killing them, they are just zapping away. So I'm going to use this as a chance to just show you what I was talking about here. Watch the distance here and watch the enemies kind of phase in. You can see that our view distance is not that great. One of the compromises, of course, of playing this on Game Boy Advance. Secret there. I do always remember that secret. I'm pretty sure there's a rifle on this weapon. Look at all that goo on the wall. But unfortunately I can't remember where that secret is. Yeah, we didn't get all the secrets, I don't think. I think there's some enemies in that final secret that we didn't get. But what else is there to say, really? This is Chex Quest running on the Game Boy Advance, and it's a good time. What's here is good and fun. And you can see here, you can even see the Chex sign on the wall there. This room is very complex. We've got a lot of varying heights. There's boxes, there's high ceilings, there's a load of enemies in here. So this is actually going to push, I think, the performance capabilities of the Game Boy Advance here. But still, you have to say this is fairly impressive stuff. I bet you didn't wake up today thinking, wow, I'm going to be looking at Chex Quest on the Game Boy Advance and being slightly impressed that it's not fumbling under the technical requirements. Hello. They do make some loud noises, these monsters. Of course, you also have to remember that when they made Chex Quest, Doom was several years old at this point, and id Software had long since moved on to Quake, which is perfectly fine. I think that Quake actually came out around the time that this showed up, so this wasn't really any competition to what id were doing anyway. But it's really novel to see this sort of getting more love recently. As mentioned, there is a... oh wow, the frame rate just takes a dive on those stairs there. I'm guessing because there's so much going on. But yeah, Chex Quest is one of those games that just kind of refuses to disappear from the gaming subconscious. You can get it for free online, and I'm pretty sure you can get the HD remaster that came out in 2020 on Steam, and I think on Switch as well. I remember seeing it on Switch. Oof, the frame rate. So as we walk past these windows here, the frame rate just kind of takes a dive when we kind of glance outside. You can see it's not unplayable, but it's definitely not super ideal. You can see the limitations of what this game is working with in the GBADoom engine here. Pick up the... basically this is a chain gun, I think. Or a plasma rifle. Again, when there's a lot of space on screen, the game just kind of begins throttling itself. I should point out as well, in my other playthroughs of this, because obviously I played this several times before recording this, the game would crash if an enemy went through that teleporter there. I get the feeling that if you don't clear the areas in this game, the game doesn't like that. Oh, have we crashed? Okay, we've not crashed. We almost crashed there. I'm not sure what happened there. I killed two enemies at once, and it seemed to not like that. I have to point out, and as much fun as this is, this has been quite unstable to record footage for. There have been a few crashes that have occurred, and they're not always in the same spot. Sometimes they happen pretty randomly. That's not me saying this is bad, it's just me saying that it's not the most stable of experiences. The noises those enemies make are absolutely terrifying. I don't care what anyone says. That noise is nightmare fuel. I think we have to grab a key in here. There you are. Oh, okay, there's an enemy behind these boxes here. You would have thought this is where the red key is, but no, it's not. The red key is actually just behind the crate here. Is it here? No, it's there. There it is. It's right in the corner. You would have thought it would be over there where the enemy was, but no. As always, when I look at these mods and when we're sort of exploring these curiosities, you have to take into account that people have put plenty of time and effort in making these happen. So being critical of the frame rate and being critical of performance is definitely not something I want to do here. You can see for yourself how it's running at points. The performance is never super bad. This is probably the best weapon in the game. We should probably just keep this out, because this clears rooms out like nobody's business. Excuse me. So we can go inside here. There's a bunch of enemies. So in answer to the question, is it worth playing Chex Quest on the Game Boy Advance? I would say probably not. This is more of a curiosity, and once you've kind of experienced about 10 minutes of it, I think you've kind of seen all you really need to. If you really want to play this, go and get the PC copy or the HD remaster. They're both good, and you'll have a fun time with it. As said, this is a bit too unstable, and the frame rate kind of dips a bit too much in the bigger rooms. I'd say to be super playable, you'd really have to want to play this on a Game Boy Advance in order to put up with this. We'll head inside this room here. Unfortunately, this is about as far as we'll be going because, oh yes, you can see that enemy is actually throwing projectiles at me. Not ideal, because you can barely see him shoot. That switch at the end of the room there, unfortunately when we hit that, it will crash the game. I have tried several times to get around it, but it does not work. This was really fun though. It's a really novel idea, and it's really fun that someone took the effort to make this a thing. Chex Quest on the Game Boy Advance is definitely a fun flex, but definitely one I wouldn't recommend trying unless you're really into Chex Quest.